All right. Hello, YouTube Live. If you are watching this later, I can't actually tell how many people are in here live yet, but if you're watching this later, this video is going to continue to live on the channel for a little bit. Basically, this coming Monday, I've got an animation in Unreal Engine 5.4 workshop kicking off. It's a big workshop that goes for 3 weeks in July. If you're seeing this late, you can probably still jump in. Links below to all that. But this live stream is sort of just an intro to Unreal. It's just a welcome to Unreal Engine. Check out what it can do. Get comfortable with it. If you've never used it before, this will get you comfortable and familiar, hopefully. If you have used it, this will bring hopefully a better understanding to it. And if this is not your first time using Unreal, it'll be a nice little refresher. This will also serve as a nice primer or kind of prerequisite getting comfortable for Monday's class. So if you want to jump into that, you can. And if not, hey, here's a mini course on YouTube. And this video will continue to live on my channel for a while until I replace it with an actual video version of this class, which I'd like to do. I don't have any plans specifically of when I'll film it, but we'll see how this goes. If this goes really smoothly and everything just works amazingly, maybe we'll just leave this as the video. But more than likely, since we'll be talking to chat and hanging out, I'll refilm this as an actual YouTube video, take this one down and put that one up. But until then, this will just live on the channel. So with that, oh, and I probably should have done this. Yeah, if you're curious about the Unreal class, my website has the Animating in Unreal 5.4, and this is the workshop that starts on Monday. And we've got guest speakers, and we've got a new schedule, breakdown of what we've got going on, and so on and so on. So, but that's not what we're going to do today. Today, we're going to do some Unreal. Now, let's talk to chat for a sec. Hey, everybody. This is live. Yes. No, this is not a premiere. This is a live stream. I was going through the whole thing in case someone clicks this later, but this is a live stream. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Hope you are all excited. If you guys want to download Unreal Engine, depending on your internet speed, you're welcome to try and follow along. No pressure to try and keep up. You can always rewatch this later. But hey, if you have questions, I'll try to answer them. We'll do all the fun stuff. A lot of familiar names in here. Everybody. This looks very high quality for a live stream. I'm glad. I was fussing over settings for the last 20 minutes. I realized that I hit the button to go live, and then I looked, it was dropping all my frames, and I got little red errors, and I was like, whoa, fix everything. So, seems like it's working. All right, let's answer some initial questions, and then we're gonna dive in just a couple of minutes so that people have time to trickle in, because I didn't put this announcement out very long ago, so most people are probably just finding out about this. So, what do I think about the new animation tools in Unreal 5.4? I am extremely impressed with Unreal's animation tools in general. You haven't been able to animate in Unreal for very long. Like, it's only been like a year and a half, maybe 2 years or something, since animating in Unreal has been possible. And it's already, like, really good. It can't do everything that Maya can do, for example, but it can do most things that Maya can do. Some of the things that it can't still do, it will be able to do soon. And it can already do a lot that Maya and Blender can't touch, which is really interesting. It's too early for this on the West Coast. Yeah, I know it's a Saturday, and it's a little early for some people. For whatever reason, I've noticed there's a whole bunch of people in like Europe and Africa and Asia and some in Australia who have been trying to like learn Unreal, and I kind of made this live stream with their time zones in mind a little bit. So hopefully the West Coast people are also, they have their coffee. Will this stream be available later? Yes, I'm gonna leave this live stream. I'm gonna leave this as an not unlisted. I'm gonna leave this video up on the channel until I refilm it as an actual video, and then I'll take this down and put up an actual video. But I don't have a specific timeline of when I'm gonna do that. So until that time comes, yeah, this will just stay on the channel, and you can enjoy it and rewatch it. And when I do eventually replace it, it'll have all the same stuff, and so I wouldn't stress about it. And then if anybody here is signed up, I know there's a couple people here who signed up for my Monday class, the Animating in Unreal Engine 5.4 class. Anybody who signed up for that, there is like a prerequisite series of videos in that class just built in, which is an Intro to Unreal series. This is very similar to that. So that's just like a introductory series. And if you watch this stream, you'll pretty much have the same preparation materials, and you could jump into Monday's class if you want. But I'm going off the same outline, so it'll be good. All right, yeah. Questions. Probably go about 5 more minutes and we'll start the class. Do I think that in the future the whole industry will switch to Unreal? Like after Unreal, I don't think I want to use Maya anymore. I mean, I think the majority of the industry will be using Unreal for stuff. I don't think everybody will necessarily switch entirely to it. It won't make sense for every pipeline, and it won't make sense for every studio. It makes sense for a lot of them. And in the same way that like DreamWorks, for example, DreamWorks does not animate in Maya, but they use Maya. I think a lot of studios will use Unreal, even if they don't do everything in Unreal. There will still be room for other tools. And not that, I mean, I think Unreal is very powerful and people are going to be using it for a lot of things. I don't think it's going to completely push everything else out. Like, you're still going to need Houdini. You're still going to need Blender's not, like, Blender's awesome. Like, there's so many cool tools, and yeah. But I do think it's going to be in most studios to some degree. I'm curious to see if you see some limit. Also, I have the latency turned on to like a 10-second delay. So if you type something, I see it like 10 seconds late, and I'm like behind in the chat. So I'm working through the questions, and so I'm working on it. Do I see that in the future, the whole industry? I answered that one. Curious if you see some limitations at the moment compared to Maya, something like a novice may not know. Yeah, I'll go through some of the differences as we go through the class. Ouch, I think I have like a bug bite on my right here, which is right where I rest my hand on the desk. Super annoying. I never actually got the chance to use the engine for animation, but I have to see how it's different compared to Blender. Totally. Are you more of an Omniverse or Unreal Engine creator? I use both. I use Unreal Engine more, but I like Omniverse a lot, and I use them together as well. Are you familiar with Ozone 3D from Unreal? Yeah, I am. Rich is super talented. His team's amazing, and they're doing such cool stuff. Yes, I hope to do much more with the Ozone tech in the future. I just need more time. Hey Jen, now that I have the character, I also just got character creator. I'm just dipping my toes in it. All right. Did your Unreal keep crashing when you try to summon Control Rig? No, I don't think it does typically. Let's talk about that when we get to the Control Rig part. I'll see if I can replicate it. No, you don't need to prepare anything for Monday's class. No. It's more of just like, watch this stream or watch the prerequisite videos if you've never touched it before. But no, you can just come on Monday. Can you please enable subtitles? I don't know if I can. No, I don't have the ability to do that. There's a little closed captions button and it's grayed out. I can't turn it on. I'm sorry. They will probably generate after, but I don't have them right now. I'll slow down how fast I talk once I start teaching and stop answering questions. I'm going really fast while I try to answer questions. Will this class apply for Unreal Engine 4? This right now, or Monday's Intro to Animation class? Right now I'm going to show you Unreal Engine 5, some of which will kind of still apply to Unreal 4. Monday's stuff, no. Monday's stuff is all Unreal Engine 5.4, and Unreal Engine 4 can't do hardly any of what we're going to be showing in July. That's come a long way since then. I teach Unity. Should I teach Unreal instead? I'm a faculty member at a university. Well, that's cool. Hello. I don't know. I don't know about instead. I would think that like also would probably be an easy yes, but I don't know what you teach in Unity. Like Unity is a cool engine and it does some things really well. I've only used it a tiny bit, so I don't really know what it shines at, except that I know it does like really nice cell shading and it does some cool like 2D platformer stuff, but that's about as much as I know, and that's just from the internet. So I'm not sure, but I do think Unreal's a really, really good tool to be teaching in schools. Happy to talk more about it. If anybody here is watching from universities or schools or anything like that, feel free to reach out to my email. And yeah, I do training at schools as well. So if I can ever come help or something with curriculum or whatever, I'm down. I'm a kid. Is it still too soon to animate? No. If you're a kid, jump in, have fun with it, and try stuff. You will be able to make really cool stuff because you won't be as worried about like doing it perfectly like the rest of us are. We have more limited time as you get older, and so if you're younger, have fun with it. You'll be able to make such cool stuff because you've got so many resources available to you. Yeah, try it. You're never too old, never too young. Why does Unreal Engine produce such yellowish sunlight in the parts where it's not lighted really dim and dull? I don't know. You can totally dial in settings and adjust for that. Any experience with Unreal Engine on Apple Silicon? Not really. I don't have a strong Apple machine to really test that. I'd love to test it, but I don't have the hardware to find out. Will this session be recorded? Yes, this will be on the channel. Ever tried Cascadeur? I have not yet. I've seen it for years. I just haven't taken the time. Just say your class of animation. What is Monday's class all about? Anyway, I'll show you. I'll show you in a second. Will you touch on nodes or animation blueprints? A little bit today, a little bit. Can you animate in Unreal Engine 5 with the same comfort and speed compared to Maya? There is a new gizmo in Unreal Engine 5.4 that is a lot more similar to Maya, if that's what you're looking for. That just came out. That's in my class. I can show you where the button is for that too, but I'm still more comfortable in Maya because I've been using it for over 10 years, but I'm getting better at Unreal. I can do stuff in Unreal. I'm just not as comfortable because I don't have the muscle memory built up quite as much yet. Are you going over the new motion matching? Not really, not in this class. That's more advanced. All right. Shall we? Shall we dive in? Shall we begin? All right. So let's do this. Okay. So I'm gonna actually I'm gonna do this so that I'll be in the corner. But if at any point I start clicking stuff in this bottom left quadrant of the screen and I'm like blocking things, let me know and I'll switch to this. But for the moment, I'm just gonna maximize the screen space. All right. So quick recap. On Monday, animating in Unreal Engine 5.4 happens. So if you're looking for like how to animate in Unreal and like use it for production, hopefully get jobs. Like if you know how to animate, but you want to learn how to animate in Unreal and the new tools and features and stuff like that, that's what this class is going to be for that I have on screen right now. There's a link to that down below. That starts Monday. It goes for 3 weeks. And we've got guest speakers. We've got a bunch of people who work at Epic, which is really cool, animation director, technical product managers for animation and rigging. We've just got some amazing people. You can read, I won't read it to you, and then we've got an overview of what you'll learn, and so on and so on and so on. Some FAQs, things like that. The whole class is recorded, so if you jump in, you'll have access to all that. But for now, we're going to start at the beginning, and I'm just going to show you Unreal. Let's see. I'm just checking, making sure something's going on in the chat. Are we all good? We are good. All right. Create a detailed Unreal animation course, please. I'm willing to pay. I want to learn Unreal for environment design and filmmaking. I expect to do more with Unreal. I'm going to be doing a ton of YouTube videos. I'm going to be doing additional classes. So whether you are looking for paid stuff or you're looking for free stuff, I got you. We'll be doing lots of Unreal stuff on this channel. Starting soon, which is exciting. I've just begun that process. All right, so I'm going to do my best to just teach, but also answer questions as we go. We'll see how I balance this. I've never done a live class on YouTube live stream before with this big of an audience, so this is new for me. I hope it works for you, but I'm going to try and keep the pacing up and then kind of take breaks and pauses every so often to address questions. So if you have questions based on what I'm doing, feel free to throw it in the chat. If I miss it and it gets buried, just know that I will sort of come back later and say, hey, any questions on what I just covered? And we'll sort of take it in chapters like that. So if I notice a question, I can answer it, but I'll come back to ask you for questions as well. So don't feel like you have to do anything special. Just know that I will do my best. Just don't spam a question, because that won't help. All right. So I want to start at the very beginning. When you go to download Unreal Engine, you get the launcher, which is this guy. The launcher is a place where you can also like get games and stuff. So you can download Fortnite and so on. But there's an Unreal Engine section. And in the Unreal Engine section, this in the library, for example, is where you can install the engine. And you can add multiple versions. So if you need a different version of the engine, you can go and do that. You can only ever have like one major version of like a major release at a time. So like 5.4.2, I can't have 5.4.1. If you have 5.4, you have the most up-to-date 5.4. If I want 5.3, that's fine. 5.2, that's fine. But it'll auto-update these. In this case, I've uninstalled everything but the most recent one, just for the simplicity of my teaching. But I want to give you one little heads up. If anyone's like, oh, I'm gonna go download the engine really quick. Hey, Winbush is here. You guys, Winbush here in the chat. Amazing YouTube channel. You'll actually learn a ton of Unreal stuff over on his channel too, especially for motion design, some UEFN stuff I think he's doing now. I haven't checked the channel in a little bit, but dude, his stuff's been blowing up. It's awesome. So check him out too. There's a bunch of us making Unreal content, and his videos are awesome. So a quick heads up. When you're installing the engine, if you want to save some time and some disk space, in your options, when you go to do the installation, scroll down, and you can turn off a lot of these target platforms. These come on by default. It wants to install this stuff, assuming you're going to ship a game to these different platforms. We're not, so save yourself the time. But just to briefly talk about the launcher, in this little application, there's actually a bunch of really cool stuff that people kind of just skim over because they're like, I want to get in the engine, and they skip this, but it's cool. It's interesting. Under the news, you'll see a variety of stuff that they're showing, which is actually really helpful because you'll see the updates of what's new and various resources and downloads you can get. And same thing goes with samples. People skip this a lot, but don't forget that this is here for a reason. The sample section, you can actually download entire projects and kind of figure out how they work, or at the very least just enjoy them. So you could download an entire games process if you're trying to learn how to do games. There's a city sample, which is that Matrix demo, if you've heard about that. There's tons of different examples of different things like metahumans and broadcast motion graphics and all kinds of different things. But the marketplace is another really useful place where you can go download a whole bunch of just assets. And the most important thing I need to tell you for this is every single month, go to the free section and say free for the month. Every single month, a variety of things are free for that month, and you just add them to your cart, you hit the button, and you have them. And some of these things are really expensive normally, and so you just build up your library of assets. Don't be picky, just grab everything every month, may as well. Sometimes there's some really useful stuff in there. Some of the stuff you'll never use, but hey, you have it. But yeah, you can find characters, environments, assets, and so on. Blueprints. There's a ton of stuff in here, which we'll come back to this in a little bit. There's additional things. We're not going to go through every single button, but ultimately the library is where you go to launch specific versions of the engine, to access various projects you have on your computer, and to browse through the stuff that you've bought from the marketplace as well. So, yeah, that's the launcher. That's like the sort of the getting started experience here. And if you have multiple versions of Unreal open, you can make sure you have the right one as your default up in this top right corner. That's what this little drop down is for. If I had multiple versions, I would pick the main one, and then whenever I hit this button, it launches that primary version. So there's that. I'm going to go ahead and just launch the engine, and we're going to make a new project, and I'm going to show you what's going on. There is a splash screen open right now, but it's on my other monitor, so you can't see it yet. That will take a while the first time you do it. But now that it's done, we are here. This is the Unreal Project Browser, and this is how you just say, hey, I want to make a new project. It's different than if you're used to Maya or Blender, where you open the software and it just opens it and you're in a new scene. Unreal has this kind of first step of the project. It kind of forces you to be better than most of us are in tools like Maya. In Maya, there's a process called setting your project that everybody forgets to do. I have videos on it, and nobody watches those videos because everyone goes, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do that, I forgot. And then you get frustrated when you're like, I play blasted, or I rendered, or I did an autosave, like where's the file? I can't find it. It's not on my desktop. And then it's like, oh right, it's in that weird folder. It's because of the project thing. Blender's nice because Blender, it encompasses everything in the .blend file. Anyways, point is that Unreal has a very specific file structure that it will maintain at all times. Its project directory. And it makes you do that first. And so, you can basically just tell it, hey, I want to make a game, I want to do film, and so on, right? The recent project has all your other stuff, but for our purposes, we've got games, which you could click these and you can see what they do. I understand the text is probably a little small for you guys to read, but that's all right. What we're going to do is we're going to go to film. I'm going to go to blank. You'll see that if I click on these different options, in-camera VFX has like a whole little set in here. There's like a green screen, compositing, timers. These are basically going to give you a preset with a little bit of a world pre-made for you and different plugins already turned on for certain workflows. That's the main thing this does. In our case, we're just going to go to film. We're going to go blank. We are going to turn on starter content, and I'm going to turn ray tracing off because I'm live streaming and I don't want my computer to die. OBS is doing its thing. We will still have actually really amazing lighting. We don't have to turn on ray tracing we don't have to turn that on for the lighting to be good. So don't feel like you need to have that on right away. You can always turn it on later, change some settings. But for now, have our location, and we'll call this Intro to Unreal 2, because I've already done a version of this. And create. Boop. And now it's going to open on my other monitor. Give me just a second. Now I have a splash screen that's doing its thing. This is the splash screen that will take a minute. In my case, it shouldn't take that long because I have already done this process fairly recently. It's got to compile shaders. Any questions of what we just covered? I know I haven't really covered much yet, but anybody have any questions? What is Windbrush a tool? No, Windbush, the creator here in the chat. How do you deal with clearing jitter from mocap? Is it possible to do in Unreal to access the graph editor of the mocap animation? Yes, you absolutely can. You can do all of your motion capture cleanup in Unreal if you want to. You do have a graph editor. That's a lot of the stuff I'll be covering in my class starting next week, the Animating in Unreal. I'll be showing you all those animation tools. But yes, it has graph editor tools. It has actually some really powerful motion capture editing stuff. It's actually pretty incredible. It does a lot of things that Maya can't do. It has a few things that's missing from Maya, but those additions will be coming soon, from what I hear. But yeah, you could do it in Maya, bring it into Unreal, or you could bring it to Unreal, do it there. Totally up to you. You actually can do it in both now. You can choose. Hey, Luis. Hi. I'm not making any animations right now, but I had to come and say hi. Have fun on Unreal. Thanks for dropping in. I hope you're doing well. Question, is Unreal Engine still free to use? Yes. I have heard price changes at Unity in Unreal. Unreal had a price, so yes. Unreal Engine, for anybody who doesn't know, Unreal Engine is free to download, free to use. Like many softwares, it has like an enterprise level licensing structure. So the recent change for Unreal Engine was that Epic Games updated their terms of service, basically saying that if a company is making over, I think it's over $1 million using Unreal Engine, from that point forward, they begin to pay a per seat, like license to Unreal, since they're making all that money. For all the rest of us, it's free. So I wouldn't worry about it. What's the advantage of animating in Unreal instead of exporting from Maya? Kind of depends on your workflow. It kind of depends on the pipeline, but the whole idea is that you can just change stuff. So if you do something in Maya and then you put it in Unreal and you're like, oh, I wish we had done something differently. You got to go back to Maya, change it, not being able to see your whole environment, all your other stuff, and then do another export, bring it back in, check it. Hopefully that worked. If not, repeat the process. But if you just do it in Unreal, you tweak it, change it, you see everything. Like it just looks finished. It's whole like final pixel real time. It's very powerful and very fast to work that way. All right. Okay. There is a live link as well, but it's sort of like, if you're gonna have both applications open, wouldn't you rather just have one application open and just have it look awesome? There are reasons why you might not want to do it that way, but that's the general idea. Also, there's various features. All right, anyways. Welcome to Unreal Engine. This is the interface. If you've done anything in other 3D tools, this is going to be really familiar. It's not going to feel all that different right off the bat, just in terms of we've got our 3D viewport, we've got an outliner over here. If you click on something, you've got our details, you know, our attributes over there. It's pretty straightforward. Now, to give you a quick heads up, all of your regular 3D commands work the same. So if I click on the floor and hit F, it'll focus on the selected object, just like Maya. If I hold Alt and left click and right click and all that kind of stuff, it's still the same 3D movement. If you hold Alt and middle mouse, the one thing you'll notice is by default, your middle mouse will be inverted. If you hold Alt and middle mouse drag, it will invert and it'll go the opposite direction of what you're expecting. And that is easily changed under Edit, Editor Preferences. That will pull up this somewhere. And then you basically can just middle mouse. Right here, you can say invert middle mouse pan. That is a setting that will then, it inverts the up and down of middle mouse. So basically now just Alt and then my clicking and stuff, it's exactly now like Maya. So if that bothers anybody, that's how you do that. But beyond that, there's one other cool thing. If I hold down the right mouse click and then I use WASD, I can move around this environment like a game. That is one of the fun little things that working in a game engine gives you, is you can move around like a game. So if you are a gamer, this will be very easy to adapt. If you don't like that, then you can just use the normal 3D manipulation stuff. But if you hold down right mouse click, that's how I can move my mouse around like this, move my viewer, and then I can just fly around the scene. Now, sometimes when you're moving your camera like this, you'll notice that it's really fast. Oh my God, and you'll lose your world. Which again, you can click on something and hit F and bring it back. But if you're like, oh my God, why is it so fast? Ah, right? It's up in the top right corner. There is a camera speed slider, which I don't bother with. I just, if you change the speed, that'll help. Or if you're holding down middle mouse, if you're holding down right mouse click and moving around, if you use your scroll wheel and scroll down, it'll slow you down. See that? Now I'm going at a slower speed, even slower. Fast, 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 slow, 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 fast, slow, right? I'm just holding down the right mouse click and I'm scrolling the middle mouse, I'm scrolling the wheel. And that's adjusting this slider up here. So if you ever are just like, ah, that's how you fix that. So that's just moving around. Super basics, right? Now, couple things you'll notice off the bat. There's no timeline. And there's not a little menu up top of shapes. If you're coming from Maya, that's usually a thing you see. If you're in Blender, that's not a thing you see. You would use, what is it, Shift A and add stuff that way. In Unreal, to bring stuff into our scene, here's what we're gonna do. Top left corner, there's this little kind of add button. You can see it. There's a little thing that says, boop, drop that down, and now we can add stuff. I'm realizing how small my screen text is for you guys. Are you able to read this? How many people are watching on phones versus watching on like a computer? Can you guys read any of that text? I'm starting to wonder if I should like up the resolution for your benefit. What do we think? Type a 1 in chat if this is a good size. Type a 2 in chat if you want me to up the resolution so you can read stuff easier. 1 for this is good, 2 for please zoom it in. Let me know, let me know. 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Oh, right, there's a 10-second delay. I just realized there's a latency thing, so I have to wait for that all to come through. Okay, seems like most people are fine with it. There's a couple asks for zoom in. Watching it 480. Yikes. I'm going to try making it bigger just since there's a couple people. Let me try it. Give me a second. There. We'll go a little bit bigger. How's that? There. A little bit better. Okay. So, jumping back in. Top little menu down here. This is how we can add stuff to our scene. And you'll notice that there's a bunch of things you can go. So we can go to shapes, for example, and we can say, I would like a cube. And if you click it, it'll pop a cube in there. Most people don't just click, though. You would go in here, you'd find, I want a sphere. And you just click and drag it. And if you click and drag it, you can put it wherever you want to put it. Right? That's the recommended way of doing it, is just like find stuff and then just drag. And then all of your manipulation hotkeys are the same as you're used to in Maya. So Q, W, E, R, Q, W, E, R for all your transformation controls. If you're used to Blender, it's different, right? But the main thing I want to show you here is in this little menu, there's a variety of things you can add. Shapes are the most basic of just like, oh, I want a cube, cool. But if you start digging through here, like, what else do I have? A lot of this stuff is not going to make much sense to you because it's different. Because we're in a game engine, a lot of this stuff is made for games. So if you're like, oh, what's under basic? Ooh, a character, who's that going to be? It's not like a character in the way you think it's going to be a character. It's game engine stuff. So like, okay, let's not do that. And so in Unreal Engine 5, this is where you go. And for now, I'm just going to show you the stuff that's most important at the moment. But one thing I want to kind of mention is in Unreal, pretty much every type of asset you bring in is like any object or asset or like thing that you want to put in here is classified as an actor. So if I take an actor by itself, this is basically like a null object or an empty or a locator or something in a way, kind of. Actors in general are just like things in the world. And so that's what these are called. These are like, technically they're called actors in our scene. But we're not going to worry too much about it. Now this one here in the middle is kind of fun. This little thing is called the player start. The player start is where our character would begin if we were making a game. So if I hit the little play button, it actually puts me in that spot, and then I can go and I can walk around and I can bump into objects, and you can see there's collisions, and so I can't actually pass through the objects. If I hit escape, I'm back to editor mode. And so if I take this and, for example, if I just take this and put it on top of the cube over here and face it towards the cone, now I hit play. That's what that is. So that's where the player would start if we were making a game. In our case, we're not. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. Boop. In fact, I'll delete a couple of things just to show you how stuff works. Before I delete things, actually, let me add one more thing to our scene. I'm going to go to Add. I'm going to go to Lights, and we're going to add in some point lights. And this is where we start to see some of the cool stuff of Unreal and the real-time lighting. So I'm going to go ahead and make this. And we'll do our super cinematic, actually I'll tell you what I'm doing. Do our super cinematic lighting. So with a light selected, over here in my details panel, you can see that if I click on the light, there's a bunch of settings. We've got our intensity, all that kind of stuff. And we have light color. We'll go for the classic, orangey light, and then I'll hold Alt and move this light to duplicate it. So I basically I guess I should mention that. If I click on something and I move it, great. If I hold Alt and then move it, it duplicates. That's how I got the second light. Then the second one over here, we'll go for that blue, and we'll do the classic like blue and orange cinematic trailer thing. Great. Now, at this point, what I'm going to do is I want to show you in the outliner over here. We have a variety of things in our scene already. Atmospheric fog, all of our shapes that we've added, instance foliage actor, like what is all this stuff? Here's what we're going to do. The fog. Actually, let's be organized. I'll take the cone, the cubes, the floor. The floor is cool. I'll keep the floor. And we'll get the lights. Anything I added. The sphere. Yeah. These are all the things that I've added to my scene. I'm going to go ahead and right-click them and say... It's throwing me off that this is so large now. The text is so big. Here we go. Down here, move to. I'll say create new folder. I'll make a new folder, and I'll just say my stuff. If I could spell properly. Not a great way to organize my folder, but it's fine. There's a folder full of my stuff. Boop. Here's everything else that was here before. A delete. I'll show you how to build it back up. So, right off the bat, because we have lights in the scene, we can see that this looks very different now. It's kind of cool. If I get rid of my point lights, if you were following along or you're trying to do this at home and then you're like, I don't have lights, what does it look like? It's just nothing. Oh no, where's my world? It's all still there. It's just that it's dark now. And you can, let me go ahead and undo that. Bring back my point lights. You can absolutely view this in an unlit mode if you want to. Like in Maya, we have 4, 5, and 6. In Blender, you have the Z key to get that little wheel of, you know, mesh, wireframe, shaded, all that kind of stuff. If you want to do that here, up in the top left corner of our viewer, we have a lit button. And this drop down will show us lit and unlit and wireframe mode and so on, right? And so if you end up getting rid of your lights, that'll allow you to still see what's going on. But typically, we'll just keep it lit. Haha. So, anyway, I can move these around. You can see the lighting stuff. Great, right? Makes sense. For now, here's what I'm going to do. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what we've deleted from the scene, what was in there by default. One of the main things that we had was this big sky environment, right? We had this like nice sunlight sky stuff. And so what I can do is if I go to Window, Environment Light Mixer, that pulls up this menu. And this is really handy because it just gives you a bunch of buttons that create pretty much all that stuff that we got rid of. So I'm going to walk you through this. In our scene, let me put this where you can see it. In our scene, we have this dark environment. I'm going to start clicking buttons. If I create a skylight, it did something, but it's also giving us an error and nothing has really happened. A skylight needs a sky atmosphere to work properly. And then neither of those seem like they've done anything, so then we add a create atmospheric light. And now we start to see stuff. Why did it take 3 buttons to look like things happened? Well, because we actually added 3 different things, but they work together in a specific way. So I'm going to show this to you. So if I move this away for a minute. Now we have this, which is almost looking like what we had before. I'm going to hide my 2 point lights. I'm going to show this to you. So what we've added here is a directional light, a sky atmosphere, and a skylight. And if I go like this, you can see the sun way up there, right? So the directional light, if I turn it on and off, you can kind of see what happens. The directional light is the sunlight. That's like the sun. The sky atmosphere is basically like the blue image texture thing. It's the atmosphere. It's the physical like representation, or it's the visual representation of that sun element, right? So turning it off turns off the big blue thing. But you can see we still have the light because that's the direction light. Boop, boop. Now, if you look closely, look at the color of the shadow and look at the color of this object from behind. If I turn the skylight off, now, so we had the direction light, the sky atmosphere, which changes things a bit, you'll notice, and the skylight, which doesn't see anything yet. The sky atmosphere, if you look closely here, see how the shadow is black? But if I turn on the sky atmosphere, it actually kind of fills this in bluish. See the difference? Black shadow, bluish shadow. The sky atmosphere, that big blue thing in the sky, is like an indirect light source in a way, and that's why we're getting blue cast into here. If I turn the skylight off, it turns off the light element of it. So the sky atmosphere is the actual visual thing. The skylight is its ability to cast indirect light and bounce it around our scene, giving everything kind of the blue tinting effect, because it's kind of absorbing that. And this direction light is the sunlight itself, which without the sun, none of this really works because everything's too dark. So So that's why we clicked 3 different buttons to get to this point. The direction light is the sun, the sky atmosphere is the big blue thing, and then the skylight is the big blue thing's ability to cast indirect lighting into our scene, which is what makes this feel a lot more realistic. Gives us our bounce lighting. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to stop for questions in a second, but first, 2 more buttons to show you. Also in here, we have a volumetric cloud, which makes things way cooler because now we have clouds up in the horizon. And lastly, this whole bottom area is just a black void of nothing, so we'll add our height fog. And that adds fog down below the horizon line. This environment light mixer is the easiest way to just hit a bunch of buttons and get all this stuff back if you end up deleting it. And now I can tweak all of the settings. I could also click them individually and go to the details panel for them, but if I wanted to just do it as a big panel, then there you go. Whoa. We all good? My screen just decided to refresh, but I think we're still good. Then what else? Oh, and I wanted to show you one more thing. So I can click on the directional light and we can change, for example, the intensity of the sun, right? All that stuff. We can change the color of the sun, as you'd expect. We can change with the height fog, for example, if you raise and lower it, which I'm not going to be able to show you super well right now. You can adjust the height fog, you can adjust the atmosphere. So like the way that the light interacts with these things. I'm not going to get into the science of all this, but you can adjust all these things. For example, the volumetric clouds, you can adjust like the size of the planet, which actually is not going to make a difference right now. Let me try and find, there you go. Bottom layer altitudes. You can change the way, like now we're in the sky, now we're way lower, and so on. The most important thing I need to show you is this. If you want to change the direction of your light, you could absolutely grab your direction light and spin it like a fool, or hold Ctrl and L. I tend to do this on the right side of my keyboard where Ctrl and L are both accessible with one hand. But if you hold Ctrl and L, you get this little sundial. And if I just move my mouse, I'm just holding Ctrl and L with my left hand, and with my right hand, I'm just going to move my mouse. Left and right spins us like that. And then up and down goes up and down. This can be a little unwieldy if you don't know what you're doing. So if you just start moving the mouse, it's kind of hard to get oriented. But if you just go left and right and then up and down, that's how I do it. Left and right to pick my direction, and then up and down to pick the angle. There you go. If you decide you don't like the sky, turn off volumetric cloud. If you want to do anything else, you can change that too. But that is kind of your basic setup of how this kind of initial scene was created in Unreal, and why most scenes start off with the sun, how you can change that sun, and how you can sort of adjust the various settings, and why there's so many things in here for you to mess with. That's why. There's all these different things. They work together to create a realistic behavior of light outside. Hopefully that makes sense. Questions? Let's see. Let's see. Cool. I know I have a little bit of delay here, so I'm just checking the chat. Seems like we're all right. I'm going to keep moving forward unless there's more questions. Is there a way to have a scene lit with no shadows? While animating, I don't really want to see environment shadows on my character. Totally. Yeah. You can click any light specifically, and you could go down here to its attributes, and you could say, hey, don't cast shadows. So now I can have the environment lit, but no scene shadows. So any light can be individually told, like, hey, don't cast shadows. That's one way to do that. You can also say, don't affect the world, and then it doesn't work. How do you bring up the light mixer? It was under Window, Environment, Light Mixer. That is how you find that. And there's all of my settings. And it's reset in terms of its text size, which is interesting. Oh, there's one more thing that I completely missed. I forgot to show you this. if you click on an object and you go to move it, you might notice, I forgot to address this. See how it's snapping? It's like, right? And if I go to rotate it, it's jumping every 10 degrees or 10 units and stuff like that. If I try to scale it, same thing, bam, bam, bam. By default, snapping is turned on. We can turn that off. Up here in the top section of the viewport, we have our selection. So Q, W, E, R, all of our transforms. And then over here we have our grid snapping, rotation snapping, scale snapping. If you just hit these buttons, the blue buttons, and disable those, now it will move and rotate smoothly. Oh, one more thing. Another little helpful tip. If you go to rotate something and you're like, I want to spin it. And you're trying to grab the ball and like just spin it, but it's not spinning. Why? By default, the arc ball is not turned on. So you're actually just grabbing like the camera in a way. So if you go up to edit, editor preferences, that's another setting you might want to change right off the bat, especially if you're coming from Maya or Blender or something. And if you, I don't know why it's all hard to read now, but if you search in here, arc ball, there's the thing that says enable arc ball rotate. And if we turn that on, I know it's like impossible to read, but ARC ball, ARCBALL, arc ball. If you turn that on, now there's a ball. Now you can just spin. Spin to win. That's how that works. So your arc ball is that. And you'll notice there's not like a screen space ring around it. There is a way to turn that on, but I'm going to save that for animation stuff. For now, that's like the first thing you want, is just turn on your arc ball. Cool. So that's the initial kind of how the things work in Unreal. And then let me hit these questions. Are there any cases where putting something in a folder changes access to it? In this particular case, the way I've done it here, no. There are other ways to do kind of folders and separating stuff. Like you can have like levels in folders, and you can do folders in your level sequencers. Like there are other things that can change the hierarchies and stuff. In this sense, if I'm understanding your question properly, no. Just organizing should be fine. It never looks natural. It's so yellow. What's yellow about it? Doesn't look yellow to me. Do you have like night mode turned on your PC or something? I mean, the sun should always be slightly tinted yellow because the sun kind of just has some yellow in it. But if you want to change it and like switch it up, we could turn on temperature and we could like go cooler, try to blue it down a little bit. So if you don't like the colors of Unreal and you want to get it like less yellow, you can do that color correction on your own. You don't have to stick with how it is. And you can do it as like a whole world global thing with post-process volumes. There's a lot you could do. So if that's the thing you don't enjoy, you can totally change that. Where is editor preference? Edit, editor preferences. That's where you find the menu where you can do invert middle mouse pan and enable arc ball rotate, which is what I've shown so far. Let's see. Are the clouds static or animated? If you have a static sky, would it be better to use a skybox? The clouds they can be dynamic. I don't know if they're dynamic right now. Let me go look. I forget. I don't usually do a lot of stuff with the sky, but you can make them dynamic. You can do different things with them. Let me see. What do I do exactly? I like remind myself how they work. I use some other plugins for stuff. I assume it's in here. I don't know. That's a good question. I think by default, it doesn't move. But you could do some stuff like, let's see. I know there's ways to mess with it, but I actually don't usually do that. So it's an excellent question, and I don't know the answer offhand. I know there's some different marketplace assets with skies that come all animated and doing cool stuff though, so you can do that as well. How do we know what template to start with? That is something I showed in the beginning, but I can totally address it again. Typically, if you're just gonna like work in Unreal and like make a thing, and you're like coming from Maya or Blender and you just want to try Unreal, go to Film and hit blank. And then I would recommend turning on starter content. Can we change perspective to orthographic view? Yeah, they have orthographic view now. I'll show you like the main way. So this is, if you're trying to look at your scene from different angles, here's a quick way you can do that. Top left corner, there's a perspective drop down. You can see that there's a top, which let me go ahead and, there's top, and then there's bottom, there's left, there's right, front, back, all that kind of stuff, right? I don't actually know if those are oh, they are oh yeah, they are orthographic. So that's orthographic views right there. And then your perspective. That's also how you can select additional cameras. That'll pop up here once you have them. So yeah, that is how you can jump into those. And if you're trying to replicate Maya's kind of 4-panel thing, if you go to this top left little hamburger menu and go down to layouts, you can actually tell it to be 4 panes. And then you could try to go in here and say, I want a top view, and I want a right view, and a, I don't know, a left view or something, or a front view. Whatever you want to click. They're kind of all tied together. So that's kind of a way you can do it. I would probably just make new cameras. And then to minimize and maximize them, the top right corner of each of these has a little button. Whoop, 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 right? So yeah, that's that. So that's in this little hamburger menu, layouts. Make sure that my phone buzzing is not anything I need to worry about right now. Let's go for the moment. I remember you from DreamWorks. Oh, cool. I don't know you based on your username, but thank you for being here. That's awesome. Let's see. I have a mid-range PC, Ryzen 7 and GTX, and then we'll jump back to the class in a second. Will it run smoothly on my PC? I'm not sure. I don't know the settings. I don't know the different computer hardware settings of Unreal for like older hardware that well. So like a GTX 1660 is an older card for sure. I would assume that you could use Unreal. You might just might need to turn down like the lighting settings. Maybe just don't have it lit or something. I'm not sure. It's worth trying, you know. Can we set 2 or 4 layouts like Maya? Totally, yeah. Top left corner, layouts. You do 2 panel views and things like that. Yeah, you can do all these kinds of things. The top left corner, layouts. And then you can just adjust them and tweak them. What is the strength of Unreal Engine versus Maya and the other way around when you're doing a project with program? Kind of depends on the project. If you are curious what kinds of stuff I would use Unreal for, watch my recent videos on YouTube. I have done a few videos lately in Unreal showing various workflows that are things I could not do in Maya. So if you're curious what kinds of stuff I'm doing in Unreal, just keep watching my YouTube channel. There is a delay, yes. There's like a 10-second delay between me saying stuff, you hearing it. Also, I'm like reading chat in order, so I'm sometimes behind. Is it possible to have the same navigation system as Maya? Yeah, I think I already showed how to do that. All right. Let's move forward. Let's keep going. I gotta stay on target here. So, next up, I want to show you one of the main things that's different about Unreal, and I'm going to turn my point lights back on. In order to do that, I need to move out of your way. So right here's a little button called the content drawer. If I click on that button, bottom left corner, whoop, it pulls this up, which is a little big. Now you can see it. The content drawer, you can hit this button and open and close it. I never do that. I just hit Ctrl+Spacebar. Ctrl+Spacebar will open it up, and then it'll go away whenever I click something. You can also dock it. right here, dock in layout, and then it'll just stay there, like in Unreal 4. But anyway, your content drawer is where your assets live, which I'm going to go ahead and just take back over here. In here, you have our starter content folder, which is what I recommended we turned on earlier. Starter content has a bunch of folders. Architecture, which has, let me make this smaller. I don't like this large resolution. So if I'm like, a wall door, I can just drag stuff in from my content browser. And if I want a window, there it is. And I can just make my little house. Right? There you go. Anyway, so we have our starter content, we have architecture, there's audio files, there's blueprints, there's all kinds of stuff in here. There's materials, which are cool because then we can just say, oh, material, what does that do? And you can just drop stuff on. This is not really the way I recommend working. Don't just like browse the content drawer and just like drag stuff on. That's not really a great way to do this. But in our case, for this intro class, we can. Now, what I want to show you is how this content drawer works. So the content folder, you can kind of see, go like this. Right here, there's a file directory, right? All content, starter content, blah, 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 blah. If I right click on this content folder and say show in Explorer, it'll pull up a window that I can show you here. When I created this project, we opened the Unreal project browser and it was like, hey, you want to make a thing? What do you want to do? And I went film, and or it was before that. Anyway, when we first started, we made a project. That was this project, and it created this folder structure. We called it Intro to Unreal 2, and so that's what this is. And inside we have config, content, blah, 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 and a U project. Well, the U project is the file that we're in right now. If you wanted to browse your computer, double-click a file, and it launches Unreal and opens your project, that's the button to click. The U project is our Unreal project. And if you double-click it, it'll load this file. But inside this folder, you'll notice that this can see content and engine, and we can see content and a bunch of other stuff, and not engine. Your content folder, content, content, starter content, starter content, and then all the same stuff, right? So basically what we're doing is we're just navigating that folder. So everything in your Unreal project will be self-contained within the content folder of your project directory. That's how this works. And you'll notice that if I say, ooh, I really like one of these props. There's a chair that's really cool. Check out this chair. Look how awesome. That's a snazzy looking chair. Let me say, I'd like that chair to go into Maya or Blender. I'll just go into my content folder and I'll go to my collections. I'll go to my starter content. I'll go to props and I'll go to my chair. Wait a minute. I've never seen this before. What is a UAsset? So a UAsset is an Unreal asset. It's an Unreal specific asset file, which means that you can't just like go digging in here and then move this into Maya. It's not going to work. Everything in Unreal, for the most part, is a UAsset or U file of some kind. Even materials. If you're like, what about the materials? These are cool. There's a bush material. We go to materials, UAssets, right? Unreal has its own way of dealing with data. That doesn't mean you can't get stuff out of it. If I want to get this chair out of Unreal, I can right click it. I can go to asset actions and I can do an export. And I could then export it. This is way too small for you to see, but I could export as an FBX and then I could try to move it out and do stuff. So a UAsset is basically just what Unreal will convert stuff to so that it can do everything it needs to do with that file. So if you have a chair.obj or a chair.fbx or some file from some software that you import into Unreal, it'll convert that to a UAsset within your project. And it'll have its own copy and it'll live in this folder. It will never refer to something from out on your computer elsewhere. If you import something to Unreal, it will copy that thing, put it in your project directory, and make it whatever file format it needs to be. So it doesn't hurt the original, but it will make its own version here. And that's how that works. But your content drawer is basically where you go to add stuff to your scene. So if you're like adding a cube, sure, you could just make a shape and drop in a cube. and there's my table. But if I have an actual table I need, well, I need to go into my content drawer, and I need to go find my table and drop it in there. And what's cool is I can do that same trick as before, right? I can select objects, I can hold Alt, I can move it, and then I can go ahead and just spin, and I can start building my scene. And all of these objects are instances of the original mesh, which is in here. So it's very, very fast, very performant. And I can now grab both of these chairs and go like this. And now we've got the council. And now as we meet the great shapes of our time, have come to discuss the future of the land. Come, my friends, it is time to meet. We need one more. We have one more seat at the table. Who shall it be? Who shall we grant access to our council? Perhaps the almighty cylinder. There we are. The mighty marshmallow. We now have our council. And here they sit at the table. Let it be forever known. Now, if we want to put something on the table, I can show you another cool trick. They have this statue, the idol. It is the object of their worship. I can just drag it right onto the table, which is really nice, and then I'm done. And then scale it down. I've got the statue. It's my turn to talk. If I were needing to reposition this asset, watch this. Maybe they all have a hat. And so we'll make one over here. I'll bring it over here. And yes, I could go place it on his head and like put it in the right spot, and I could go zoom and try to make sure like, okay, did I get it just right? Or I could just kind of go above him somewhere and hit the end key, end, E-N-D. Boop. And it'll just pop down onto his surface. The end key is a really handy little button that allows me to take any asset or any actor that I'm holding. Here it is over here. If I hit end, it'll snap down onto the next surface that it comes in contact with. So if I hit end here, it goes down. Now it's not perfect at an angle. Here it does a great job, right? It actually hit that corner. But if I try to put a chair onto this cube, I doubt, well, actually, I bet it will make perfect contact. Let's find out. Okay, not quite. So it's not always perfect at angles, but when it comes to just doing general placement of things, it does a really good job. So if I go ahead and make another cube over here, bring this down, and make a stage, hit the end key, and there you go. It'll just snap right there, bring one over here, hit end, snap like that. So end is just a really nice like layout tool for snapping stuff. Very, very handy. Won't work as well if I decide to do this though. I'm like, aha! The council has been disbanded and one of these people is unhappy. You'll see that it doesn't actually go all the way down because it doesn't know how to calculate like that shape, complex shape, super well. And so let me go ahead and get rid of all these. Let's do this. Over here, actually, let's get some more room. Boop. All right, over here, I'm gonna take shapes. I'm gonna make a cube like this. And we are going to put together the greatest speech in history. We'll take a bench. We'll have our panelists up here. And then we'll have our audience. I'll hold Alt, and I'll just start duplicating objects, go like that. Actually, we'll do this. We'll have a little thing in the middle so people can walk up, get into their seats. Grab all this, drag it back. There you go, drag it back. Drag it back. All right. Wonderful. We're now ready to give the seminar. All right. Who shall speak at our seminar? Well, none other than the almighty sphere. but the big sphere is come to tell us the ways of the sphere. But, oh, unfortunately, end key, end, E-N-D, yes. Thank you guys for answering that in the comments. Unfortunately, the sphere said something that left everybody very upset, and they flipped their chairs and they ran out and they were very upset. So what do we do? How do I do that? If I were to take all these chairs, I'm going to raise them up. Apparently I missed a bunch. There you go. If I bring them all up like this, I'm going to give them a slight angle. Go like this. Watch this. With all of these selected, I'm going to come down to my detail panel, and there's a section called Simulate Physics. I'm going to turn physics on. Now, I'll show you a trick. If I, up here at the top, I can hit the play button, and it'll put me in game mode. And I'm now able to kind of fly around the scene, and we can see what happened. If I hit escape, it kicks me back to editor mode. Now, if I still had the player start thing in here, it would just put me wherever the player start thing is. And so sometimes you hit play, you'll go flying off to wherever that lives in the scene. And so if that's happening and you don't want it to, you can just kind of change the behavior of this play button, this little drop-down menu. And you can say, select the viewport. You can just change it to simulate, and it'll just simulate it from your camera perspective, which is pretty much the same as what I've just been doing, but it's fine. So simulate. And I can move around the scene, and I can see what's going on. Now, there's probably a better way to do what I'm about to do. But what I'm going to do is, with all this stuff selected, I'm just going to Ctrl+D and duplicate everything I have selected. Now I'm going to hit stop, and you can see that I just duplicated all that other stuff. Again, there's probably a better way. But now all these other ones I can just delete. And now I have this nice little environment of chairs. It may not be the cleanest way to work. Like, someone in the chat might know a better way than that. This is not my strong suit in the engine. I'm not an environment artist, but that's how I do it. And it works pretty well, and it was pretty quick. And now I've got this little scene. And all these chairs down here, they still have physics on. If I, for some reason, don't want that, I can just turn them off again. And now they're not physics assets. Why the duplicate? Because if I... Oh, that's a good question. Let me back it up. Let me undo. Because if I do this and I have a bunch of chairs come and fall down, there's no way to save that transformation that I'm aware of, because I hit stop and they go back to normal. So I let them do their thing. Then I hit Ctrl+D, I duplicate them, or I pause the simulation. Then I duplicate them. Then I stop the simulation. And the duplicates are what get left over. Then I can delete the originals. That's why I did the duplication, because it allowed me to keep all of these here. You can hit K. Hit K to keep the simulation. Let's see what that does. I have not hit that button before. This is why I love live streams, because I get to learn stuff too. Oops, I've done something weird. Hang on a second. If you have a bunch of objects in the same spot, it doesn't like it. It's up. That's just very normal behavior. Let's just try that. Ah! All right. Now minus the ones all the way down there. Let's hit K. What happens if you hit K? Maybe I have to have them selected. Oh, I probably have to have them selected, huh? Give me a second. Let me go back. I'm gonna try and just do this a little bit simpler. Let's just try this from scratch with like 3 chairs. Bum bum bum. Simulate physics. Into the air you go. Rotate you back. Go. Pause. K. Ah, saved state for 3 actors. Now we hit stop and they stay there. Nice. Thanks, everybody. That's why live streams are great, because I don't know everything in Unreal, and those who know more can share stuff. This is great. So thanks, everybody. So cool. So we don't have to do the duplicate thing unless you're really trying to just add a bunch of complexity. K is gonna work. That's great. Can you use a picker? Can you use a picker? Oh, do you mean like an animation picker? Yes, you can use a picker. There is not a good default picker in existence at the moment. There is a metahuman picker that exists that you can repurpose, and that's what most people do. If Epic decides to release what they built for the Lego Fortnite stuff, then we'll have a really cool picker. But that we have to wait and see if they release that, because the team on Lego Fortnite developed a really cool picker where they could like add buttons and make new things. And so a picker is something that the team at Epic knows everyone wants. They're working on it, but there's a list of other things as well. And so there is currently a picker. Some other team might make one faster, or they might release theirs at some point. So kind of a mixed answer there. How to remap spacebar from jumping? Okay. Yeah. How to remap spacebar from jumping? What do you mean? Spacebar doesn't jump unless you're in the game. If I'm in the game, I'm in simulation mode. I remap spacebar from jumping. If you're like playing the game, like if you're doing a third-person blueprint, or if you're doing like a third-person project and you're playing it, then spacebar will jump. If that's what you're talking about, and you want to change spacebar's behavior, then you have to go into your blueprints that control what buttons you're mapping of things. That's also not my strong suit, but like that would be something like that. Sorry, 1 second. Somebody in my family needs I just got one of those emails that's like, here's your code for Disney Plus. But I don't know who used it. But no one texted me for it, so they probably went to Netflix. All right. Okay. Where's the timeline? The timeline is in the sequencer, which we'll get to. You can create a level sequence basically, and that'll have a timeline in it. All right, now jumping ahead, what else do we have here? Covered all that, wonderful. Let's talk about assets for a second. So now I've showed you how to bring stuff into the scene, how to manipulate stuff, how to build some world stuff. Let's now add some materials to our friends here, to the council. Materials, we'll get rid of his hat. Materials are a little bit different in Unreal than they are in other tools you might be used to. If I go to Ctrl+Spacebar and I go to my starter content, you'll see that there are materials, and there's a whole bunch of them. And we could just mess with those. Rather than do all that, I'm going to show you some samples. What I've been working in this entire time is called our level. This world, everything you see, this is our level. If I go to Ctrl+Spacebar, I go to my content browser, and I go back to my content folder, you'll see that there's a thing called main. It is a level. This is where we are. We are in our main level right now. The little asterisk means that it is not saved, which also you can see up in the top left corner, not saved at the moment. And that is something we probably want to fix. But I'll show you what happens if we go to starter content and we go into our maps, which is often where other levels are found. And you've got advanced lighting, minimal default, and our starter map. And so if I try to go into the starter map, it's going to say, hey, do you want to save your files before you go? Because we're opening a new level, which I'll talk about in a second. But it's showing, hey, you made some changes to the chair, to the table, and you made some changes to your main level. Do you want to save those things? I'll say yes. Now I've just opened a new level, which you can see is like a whole different world. Think about this like a game, because again, it's a game engine. Think about this like a game. In Halo, or any multiplayer like game like that, you can play on different maps, right? You can play different multiplayer maps. Or in Mario, there's different levels, right? Different worlds. That's how Unreal treats this. There are different levels where you have different environments. Now you could make one super level. There's all kinds of different features for really, really big worlds and world partitions and stuff that we're not going to worry about right now. But typically, you would have a level per world. And so now I've entered my starter map level, which has other stuff in it than what we've made before. And if I say, wait, is it still fine? If I go back to main, is it all still there? Yes. Main is our original level. It's all still there. We still have the council. Excuse me.
The council.
Right? So there's our council. I'll go back to my starter content, maps, starter map. I'm at a new level. I'm in game mode first person. I want to use spacebar but jumping, so I stuck how not to jump. Well, if you're in game mode, hit escape to get out of game mode. When you're in game mode, you can't do anything about it. You're in game mode, you hit spacebar, that's what's happening. Hit escape to get out of game mode, and then you're gonna have to go into like your blueprints and change your button mapping and stuff. Are there ways to prevent accidental selection like reference visibility template options like Maya layers? There are, but there's a... Okay, wait, so that's a really good question, Emily. Are there ways to prevent accidental selection like reference visibility template options in Maya? Yes and no. There's not like display layers in the way that we're used to. There are ways to kind of limit the selection of stuff. The thing that you're probably looking for, like where you're like, I want to grab my controls on my control rig, for example, and I don't want to grab any environment assets. That is there's just a button for that in the animation tools called selection mode. Selection mode or just select or something where it won't let you select anything but your control rig controls. So yes, but it's also a little bit buggy and sometimes doesn't always work. It works most of the time, but occasionally you'll do a selection and go, you grabbed everything, and you try again and it works. So yes and no, it's there, but it's something that I think they need to work more on. So kind of. But yes, you can lock stuff as well, so you're not likely to move it around. Will this stream be publicly available post-stream? Yes, it will live on my channel until I replace it with a proper video of the same nature. But yeah, it'll be there. Quick request, can you please make a full game development tutorial from scratch where you create 2 to 3 levels with UI and in-game purchases, ads, etc.? I don't think I'm the right person to do that because I have not done all that with a game before. Also, if I were to create a whole game, I might do 2 to 3 levels with UI, but I don't think I would do in-game purchase and ads. That's just me. Not that there's, I mean, I get it, but it's just, if I'm going to take the time to learn a bunch of Unreal features, there's other stuff I'm going to want to do, not those things. I'm not surprised that that's not really documented as a tutorial. That's a lot of work. But I don't think I'm going to be the one to do it just because I'm not great at all those things. Yeah, no worries. No worries, Abigail. Hi, Loons. Hello, kitty cat. Hi. Hello. Hi. Hi. All right. Okay, anyway, back to this. Let's talk materials. Here you can see some really gross looking water. Here you can see some less gross looking water. Here we've got a variety of other things with emissive materials and color changing. We've got some stuff, we've got some metals and, you know, whatever. All these different materials are just examples. And you can see here, it looks like there's a lot of depth, right? It actually looks like there's quite a bit of like depth and height information, but if you look really closely, it is technically flat. Even if you look from here, it looks like there's some height information, but it's actually a flat plane. So that's normals and various other things. So it makes it look really nice. We don't have displacement turned on, but we have the normals. So let's talk materials briefly. Here's what I want to show you. Every material inside of Unreal is made from scratch in a node system. It can look really intense, but it's pretty straightforward if you know what you're doing. Now, if you would like just a video tutorial on how to do layers, I recommend Clinton Jones' Punisher. He has a video that came out like a month or so ago on Unreal materials at 6 levels of complexity. Wonderful video. Fantastic. Really breaks it down well. Hello, kitty cat. Hang on, I'm gonna... Here she is. Everybody's favorite. Good girl. Good girl. Alright. Yeah. I'll answer questions really quickly while she's there so you can admire her while I answer questions. Can we animate using layers like Maya? There's not animation layers in 5.4. They might be there soon. But there are other ways of using layers in a way that Maya can't do. It's very interesting. So kind of, but not like Maya at the moment. I kind of disconnected because of my Wi-Fi speed. Can you repeat what you said about the animation course pricing? I don't think I did. I don't think I really talked about the course pricing. But I guess actually it's been a while. I should probably just mention really quickly about the course. Oops. So 1 second. Quick reminder that animation in Unreal Engine is a course happening starting Monday. Lots of cool stuff. You can still sign up if you want, and it covers lots of things. So all these animation specific questions you guys have, they would be definitely answered in that class. But back to our intro content. Hello, girl. One more look at her. She's so cute. All right. Let's talk materials. There are 2 types of materials you need to understand. There's what's called a master material, which is basically like a template material. And there's material instance, which is the one you actually use. So let me show you. If I right click and I say material, and I'll go ahead and make test material. If I double click this test material that I've created, we are greeted by this screen, which is not scaled properly, so you might not be able to read this very well. But basically, this is the node setup. And inside here, you've got a bunch of little noodles that we can come out and we can connect to stuff. And so if you know what you're looking for example, I don't know, like if you were like, you could start looking stuff and you can start basically, you know, if you don't know what you're looking for, there's tutorials. That's the best way to do this. There are hotkeys to easily say, I'm going to hold 3, I'm going to drop this down, and that's going to give me a 3, what do you call this? A 3, I don't know what you would call this. I call it a color node, but it's not actually a color node. It's like 3 vectors, 3 numbers, 3 somethings. It's 3 values that are red, green, and blue, basically. And you would send that into base color. And that would change the color. And so every material in Unreal has to be made from scratch. If you, 3 vector? It is 3 vector? Okay, thank you. So basically, if you're like, I need a base color, you would run a 3 vector input into that little spot, into that socket. And that would set the color. For metallic, we would want a single number. We'll get a floating point. We'll say, I want a metallic value of 0.5, and we're going to send that into metallic. And that's going to go halfway to metal. And so you can see that if I go to 0, it's like plastic. If I go to 1, it's like metal. You can kind of see it a little bit. I'll do the same thing for roughness. I'll say 0, super shiny, not rough at all. Go to a value of 1, matte finish, not very reflective. Go 0.5 for something kind of in the middle. So anyway, my point for this is basically just to show you that a material at the kind of top level gets made and created with all these nodes, and it can get really advanced. It can stay kind of simple. But the good news is, if you don't like nodes, you're not actually usually supposed to work with materials in this way. You would work with material instances, which are basically where someone says, hey, I'm going to build a material, I'm going to set it all up, it's going to be awesome, we're going to have all these different features and things it can do, blah, blah, blah. But we want it to be easy for the artist to manipulate. And so what they will do is they will basically expose these parameters so that you can just mess with them in the engine. You don't actually have to come into the node network and start adjusting them from here. So if I want people to be able to say, hey, you know, let's let them change the color, I'll right click on this node and I'll say convert to parameter. And then I can name it, and I'll just call this color. And I'm doing this at a really basic level, not a great way of doing it, but I'm just gonna say, great, that's color. This parameter is going to be called Metallica. This one we're gonna call roughness. And that should be fine. We'll go ahead and hit apply. We'll hit save. There we go. So I'm going to take this little floor, and you can see that I can just drop this on here. And what it's going to do is it's going to pop that material onto this object. If I click it, you can see that in here, under my little material zone, sure enough, there it is. However, to adjust it, this is not the right way to go about things. I've just put this like template material on it. So if I double click it, it does the same thing. It's just like, oh God, I gotta go change it. What you actually want to do, if you were to go about that process and make a material like that, you would save it. I'd right click it and I'd say create a material instance. So what this does, it allows you to basically clone it and say, hey, this is an instant of that material. Drop that onto my object. So I'll go to my object, I'll come into it, this material properties, and I'll select material instance test material, whatever it was that I called it. Now whenever I double click that object, it pulls up the interface, but it doesn't pull up a bunch of nodes. And this is really small text, I'm sorry. What it does now is it pulls up, this is like impossible to see, you guys won't be able to see this at all, huh? Up here in the top right corner, there's parameter groups, and if I override them with little checkboxes, I can now do color pickers. And I've got sliders. So if I go like this and like this, we'll pick a darker color. And I can turn the metalness up, value of 1. I can turn the roughness down. There you go. That's like that. I could do that. Adjust the roughness again. Right, so it's like plasticky, now it's metally. So in the middle. And so it allows you, so to just kind of recap this, I know I didn't teach this super well. I'm a little distracted, but basically materials are kind of a two-phase thing. Somebody somewhere creates a master material, which is like a template. And it defines how the material is going to operate, what are the controls that somebody might have access to, blah, blah, blah. And all of that can be created and messed with, and it's very, very powerful and very cool. But if you're like, I hate that, I don't want to mess with it, you would right click on one of those and you would say create material instance. And those are the actual materials that you'll typically put onto objects in your scene. By double clicking those assets, it exposes, here we go, now you can read it. It exposes the material properties and allows you to make your adjustments like that, right? And that is like a rough overview of how materials kind of work. Now, you don't have to be stuck with just a color. You can also use textures and that kind of thing, and you just drag them into your nodes and set them up. And so if you go find some other material, like how is water created, for example, if you find this and double click it, it's going to open something that's probably a lot more intimidating than we really want to deal with. Let me go ahead and try to get this to open on the right screen. Hang on, it keeps opening on the other monitor, and every time it does, it gets smaller. There we go. I got it. I forgot to figure it out. Nope, that didn't work at all. Just trying to get it to open bigger. Whatever. There we go. So here you can see that this is our material for the water. It has a metal slider, which is turned to 1 for some reason. We could change that if we wanted to, make it less metallic or something. Roughness values, blah, 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 blah. There's actually not much going on here. It's the normal where it's doing some stuff. And you can see there's actually a whole bunch of math and stuff going on. And if you look at it really closely, it's actually not that crazy. It's basically a couple of textures. You can see that there's like wave textures going on here. And it's combining these wave textures and you can see it says large scale tiling, and then we're going to change the stuff with noise, and we're going to do other things. We're not going to worry about any of this. I'm going to not save. Point is, people can do really advanced stuff with textures, but if you don't want to, that's why we have the marketplace. If you come over to your marketplace, stupid thing. You can come over to here and you can browse for stuff and whatever. And so what I'll do is this. I'll show you. I have downloaded at some point an environment pack called Stylized Nature. And I'm just going to add that to my scene. I'm going to say add to project. We'll add it to Intro to Unreal 2, which is the current one that we're in. We'll say add to project. And that has a bunch of stuff in it that I've already downloaded. And so it'll take a second. It'll basically copy all those files into my content folder. And now I have access to everything in there. So if I say, you know what, I really wish this were grass, I can just click on this asset, go to the material thing where it says materials. Here's where I have mine set. I can reset it back to the basic floor, or I could drop this down and I could go looking for stuff. I could also go in my content browser and drag and drop stuff into that little spot, but I'll just go ahead and here, and I'll just type in grass. And you can see that there's a variety of things in here. For example, this is now made of grass blades. Not exactly what we were looking for, but what I wanted to do by showing you this is to show you materials can have animation in them. They can do some interesting things. This is obviously not how it was designed to be used. But if I come in here and let me find something useful. Let me find a good one. Let me find a good one. Well, I'll just type in grass. Let's drop grass on there. That's not the exact thing I wanted to show you, but I can just drop grass. Let's do this. I'm kind of deviating from my script here, my outline a little bit, just to make it a little bit more interesting. But I think what I'll do, let me show you this. Well, actually, okay. One step at a time. I'm getting excited and I'm trying to jump into the more advanced stuff. I keep forgetting this is not a regular demo. This is a class. I'm doing a class. So, all right. So you've now seen materials, right? Materials, which I'm not going to cover in much more detail, are node-based setups that someone had to build, and then you can adjust them from there. Let's jump back to our starter content, maps, and instead of our starter map here, I'm going to go to, I'm sorry, where am I going? Go back to our main level. I'm not going to save any of this. Back over here, back to our council. So let me do a material setup that works for our little characters here. That was what I initially was going to do. Now, my test material that I created will actually work just fine, right? So that test material that I just made, I just saw someone say to maximize the window, and that didn't seem to work for me. Let's try it again. there we go. I have to move it from one screen to the other. All right. Okay, so anyway, remember that our original material that I created here looks like this. This is all I did. A base color, default is white, metallic set to 0, specular, I'll leave it be, roughness is set to 0.5. This is my base material that I made. Nothing really that fancy. It exists. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some material instances. So I'm going to right click and say create material instance. Say mi underscore mi underscore council1. I don't know. I'm making things up. I'm going to select all these assets. Actually, I'm trying to decide how I want to do this. I'll do it this way. I'll do one at a time. So I've got my Council 1 material. I'll throw it on this cube. If I double click on the Council 1, I can change my material. And we'll override the color and we'll make red. Like a desaturated red. And we'll save that. There you go. Now, if I take that Council 1, that's a red material now, and I could drop it on anything. But if I want multiple ones for different characters, then I should make different materials for each one. And so I can just right-click my original material, create a material instance, and change this to mi underscore council 2. Or I could make it red, I could name them blue, it doesn't really matter. It's just whatever I choose to do. And so I just take a second and do that, override the color, make it blue. But this one's going to be not, I'll make it shiny, like that. And kind of like a blue metal orb. Right? So this kind of, I'm kind of bored of this red. Do something more interesting. Let's do green. Do like a nice dark green or something. There. Nice like plastic green. And so on, right? What I can do is I can save these. And I can just duplicate these. And now I've got my next two. Council 3, Council 4. I missed. Council 4. Since I duplicated them and I made new ones, if I take a new color, and we'll make this like a nice purpley pink. I'll go ahead and make this there. Like that. And finally this guy, double click. And we'll do a red. I haven't done red now. There we go. And that is how I can do some material stuff. And you can see I'm getting the reflection, right? Because Unreal's cool. And now our council has just become a lot more interesting. I just need to make sure that I save these various materials. So I just hit Ctrl+S over those. Does that make sense, hopefully? So materials in Unreal, you basically create a material node system and you make instances of it. And what's cool about this is if at any point it's like, you know what? I totally forgot. Every single one of these, I wanted it to like glow or do something interesting. If I go back and change the original material, they're all based on this. So if I was like, shoot, I needed more controls. I needed a control for specular or for normal maps or something, right? Basically, I can make that change. Let me try this. If I make an adjustment, doing that right? I think I'm doing it wrong. Oh wait, actually I don't want to do it that way. Do it this way. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to take my base color, whatever the color of the asset is. I'm going to take a multiplier, and I'm going to send that into the emissive color. Basically saying the emissive color is going to be its original color, and it's going to be multiplied with the value that's going to cause the glowing. I'm going to send that through here, and then I'll right-click this, and I'll convert to a parameter, and I'll say emissive multiplier. And I'll apply that. And I hit save. They are now all glowing in radiant splendor. But the default number might be set too high. Now they're all glowing, and it's like, oh, I just ruined my materials. What have I done? I can just go back in here and just set it so that the default value is actually 0. And then go back to 0. So now, by default, they are just their own thing. But I've added that control. Since it's a parameter, I can go to any one of these. I can go to the blue one. I can double-click it, and if I open the blue one, it now has an extra parameter in here called emissive multiplier. If I crank it up, it will cause it to glow. And you can see it actually casts light into the scene. And I can mess with that, right? And now, whosoever speaks in the council
shall be heard.
Right? But anyways, that's a new control that they all have. They all have that ability because the original material has that setting. They're all instances of it, so there you go. And the council is that much more powerful because of it. Here they speak. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let's turn off the sun. Turn off the sun. Glow. What I could do is undo the override. I'll go back to the original, what do you call it? The original material, and I'll set the default value for our emissive. I'll set it to 10, so that it does it to all of them at once. So you can see there's some different stuff, and if I don't like the way this is looking, like now they've all kind of blown out, they're all bright white, but we can see the colors on the floor. There are other things I could do to maybe fix that. Maybe have that not be the case, right? Different stuff with our exposure and whatever, but anyway, for now I'll leave it be. But there's that. And yes, you could absolutely animate all that stuff. Materials is a little bit. Yes, you can animate materials and all that kind of stuff as well. We're not equipped to do it here because we're not in animation mode yet, but we're building up. Any questions now that I've gone through materials? That's pretty much where I want to conclude with materials. Any questions on that? I'm definitely hoping to sign up for the course. Oh, totally understand. Yeah, the animating in Unreal, where is it? The animating in Unreal 5.4 class that I'm doing starts Monday, and it is more expensive than I think any of the other classes I've done in the past, because this one is so industry specific and industry focused. The training in this workshop is stuff that is not currently covered by basically anybody. It's the first public training that'll cover all this material. So it's a little bit more industry focused, but if you want the knowledge, that's where it'll be. Hopefully it helps. Actually, it's interesting. So far, I think 60 to 70% of the people who have joined that workshop are working professionals, which is interesting. Is it once in a lifetime course? I don't, that's such a big question. I don't know. Is it once in a lifetime? I mean, I'm sure I'll do more Unreal classes in the future, but I don't have any plans to do this one again. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I think it's worth it. I think it's a good class, and it covers a lot of really good stuff. But I don't know. No pressure. It's not like it's all recorded, so like if you sign up for it, you'll get to access the class recordings. But if you like don't sign up, don't feel like you'll never learn the stuff, because I will do YouTube videos on Unreal Animation. Those videos won't go nearly as in depth as this class is going to get. But you know, I don't know how to address that. It's a once in a lifetime. I think it'll be really good. But I know it's not for everybody because the price point's higher than usual. All right. I've been told about Unreal 5, and I wonder, how does this compare to Blender for animating? It depends. It depends on everybody's workflow. It's a kind of an impossible question to answer of like, how does it compare to Maya or to Blender for animation? Feature-wise, we can kind of evaluate it, but for each artist, every production, the rigs and the characters, like it's hard to say. It does not yet have every single feature that Maya and Blender have, but it also can do things that Maya and Blender will never be able to do, which is pretty incredible. So it's sort of, you know, it kind of depends on what you need. What exactly does the course cover? Is there a game development, or is it tips and tricks and editor familiar? Wait, what exactly does the course cover? Is there any game development, or is it tips and tricks and editor familiarity? The course really dives into like animating. So there's a little bit of stuff that kind of dips into game dev features, but I don't cover like game development. It's more about like using the sequencer and creating shots and animating in engine with all the animation tools. Getting into control rigs, some more advanced workflows with that kind of stuff, motion capture a little bit, talking about blueprints a little bit. I feel like I've added and changed the information since I made this page that even this isn't doing it justice. But it's really, if you animate in Maya or you animate in Blender and you want to say, hey, I just want to animate in Unreal. I want to open Unreal, I want to build a shot, build a scene, and I want to animate. How do I do it? My class will show you how to do that. And in pretty good depth, I think. I'll like mention motion matching, but motion matching is like a whole thing that like I haven't used motion matching for like a professional use case yet, so I don't feel great about like diving into it too much. But we can talk about it a bit. I also have guest speakers. That's another big thing. I have guest speakers. For example, Fred and Chase. Fred is in charge of the animation product at Unreal, or at Epic, and then Chase is in charge of Control Rig. And so they would be really good people to ask about things that go beyond what I can cover. So like motion matching is something maybe they can speak to. Do you think you might do gameplay animations or just stick with cinematic in the future? I'd like to do both. No motion matching class. No, I answered that. All right. Yeah, the guest speaker should be awesome. And if Scott's able to be there, he supervised Lego Fortnite, and they did all the animation in Unreal. And then Shazzy works at WildBrain, and she does a lot of really cool stuff on her own as well. She's fantastic. Okay. Let me go through the next batch of information here. Oh, I think I saw a question earlier. I missed it, but somewhere there was a question about whether I'm going to get to like animation stuff in this class. And the answer is not really. This is like an intro to Unreal class, and I just want to show you like Unreal as a whole. I'm not going to dive too deep into animation because I have a whole class on that coming up, and it's like a lot of information, and I don't have time to get that deep into it here. I just want to get Unreal to be less foreign to everybody everybody can be a little bit more familiar with it. Whack the microphone into my face. Okay. Oh, actually, it's one more thing on the game stuff. Alex, I didn't mention this. Alex is actually going to be covering blueprints and game design or game dev stuff. So if in the class you want to see how blueprints are used to actually kind of, do a game cinematic, do an animated cinematic, have that blend into gameplay and how that all works together and how you can actually set blueprints and blend spaces and that kind of stuff up to actually bring your animation into the game side of things, that's what Alex will be covering. Because again, that's not something that I've done professionally much, but he works at Riot and he does his own mentoring stuff on the side at Animation Flow. And he will be showing that in the class, which is super, super cool. So to address the question of I cover everything I can cover, everything I feel confident covering, animation, features, all that kind of stuff. But where I feel people are going to have questions like blueprints, where I don't think I have enough knowledge to really give everyone what they need, that's why I have guest speakers this time around. I don't usually have guest speakers as part of classes, but in this case, this is such a big workshop, I wanted it to have as much information as possible. And so that's why we have some wonderful guest speakers who have come to share their insights and be able to kind of fill in the gaps where I don't know as much as they do. So hopefully that helps. All right, let's dive back in. How long will the course be available to buy? Well, it starts on Monday, but I think you can still sign up late. I think we're going to have some spots still. So, yeah, starts on Monday, goes for 3 weeks. You won't be able to get it once the class is done. You can jump in late, like while it's happening. And you'll be able to access the recordings for the ones you might have missed. But once the class is over, I think I'll close it. And I don't have a plan yet for what happens after that. This class is, I'm doing the class and then we're gonna see what happens because I've got to kind of evaluate and see how it goes and everything else. Guest looks stacked? Yeah, I think so too. Is it planned or feasible to have the course content available later on a price per video basis? That's an interesting question. I'm not planning on doing anything like that. I would consider it, I guess, but I don't really know of a good way that I would go about it. Like the back end of my system isn't great for that kind of thing. I don't think I would do that. I think the class will exist as the class. I'm gonna have to figure out how to make another future version for other versions of Unreal, but the I will be doing videos on topics on YouTube. It won't be as in depth, but it'll cover some stuff. Just because even though I have it broken up, what about this? It's broken up all nicely here on the page, but when we actually get into the class, it's probably going to be a lot more granular, and I don't know how it would be broken up. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'll have to think about it. It's a very good question. I'm happy to talk about it, but I'm going to have to kind of see how things go. All right. Cheeky coupon code from this live class? Unfortunately, not this time. I did have this workshop on an early bird schedule, so there was an early bird thingy. Actually, well, I'll put it this way. There was an early bird price for this. Also, anyone in my mentorship gets a discount. So if you end up joining my mentorship, I will give you a discount for the class if you join the mentorship. I don't know if that really solves the problem because mentorship is not free, but there was an early bird thing. Mentorship gets a discount. There are a couple of discount codes floating around for like Animation Collaborative, for example, NMC. If you go do some research into the NMC stuff. Oh, you know what? One last thing, I should show you guys this. Then we'll jump back into teaching. If anybody wants to take Animation Collaborative's new Epic Intensive for July, there you go. The NMC Epic Intensive is happening in July, which is around the same dates of my thing, which is really cool. They have evenings, I have mornings. There's a 35% off coupon code right down here. Sir35 Wade will give you 35% off the coupon, or give you 35% off the price. So if you want to hear from speakers on that, that's more affordable. If anybody's like, I would love to take the Emerald class, but it's out of my budget. This is more just kind of like animation specific stuff, and it's really awesome. But if you go find Mike if you go find the Animation Collaborative socials, you might find a discount code to my class. Just saying. All right. Okay. Jumping in now. Back here. So, last things I want to cover. Last main things I want to cover in here are the file structure. So, working in Unreal is a little bit different than working in Maya or in Blender, because in Maya, typically what you do is you make a new Maya file, you make your environment, you animate your thing, you save, you increment, you save, you work on your thing, and then you finish it, right? But then you say, okay, now I'd like to do another animation with the same character. So what do? In Maya, you make a new Maya file. You start from scratch, you bring in your stuff, you go from there. Now, if you're doing a whole bunch of animations in one environment inside of Maya, typically what you might do to save time is have one Maya file contain your environment, and you have another file somewhere of the character that you're going to reference in. And so when you animate a bunch of different files, you'll do one of two things usually. You'll either make a new file, reference in the environment, reference in the character, animate your stuff. Then, for the next version, you do the same thing. You make a new file, bring in your environment, bring in your character. Saves you a bit of time to rebuild everything, and then you just go from there. And every single file is a different animation. Or, if you're using layers, depending on how you're working, you might do all your animation on an animation layer instead of Maya, and then you'll have a different layer per animation. That's another way that you could kind of have it all in one file, one big master file, with a bunch of animations per layer. It's going to get heavy. Going to get more risky as you risk corrupting the file and things like that, but it's an option, right? Inside of Unreal, you would not make a project per file. You would make one project, and then you would work in that project with all your stuff. So here I'm in one project, and I can have all kinds of different levels, right? Like I've got all these different maps. For example, there was the starter map, that's one environment. We've got minimal default as a different map. We've got advanced lighting, we've got a different map, right? So we have all these different levels. So these could all be different environments. You know, the bowling alley and the kitchen and the park. So you could have different places like that, but then you can also have different like animations as well within each of those. Because when I open these different levels, this is just the environment. This is just the world. This is not the animation. The animation lives inside of what's called a level sequence. And that's where your timeline lives. I'm not going to cover this in too much detail today. I know it's where things start to get a little bit juicier, but I have more kind of intro to Unreal overview stuff to throw at you. But I want to give you this now. That way, even if you're not taking my class on Monday, you have like the rough idea of where to go from here. Which is, and this is what my class really dives into on Monday. If I create a level sequence, so I'll go back to my content and I'll make something new. By the way, I should organize this a little bit better. I have all these materials that I made. I'm gonna make a new folder and I'll call this materials, or I'll just do materials and I'll say, all right, all of you go in there, boop, move here. There, clean that up. I'll right click, and I'm going to create I never do it this way, actually. I do it the other way. I get to search. Let me see where it lives. That's in cinematics, that's right. So if I right click down here and I go to cinematics, you can see that there's something called a level sequence. I never make it this way, but this is where you'd find it in here. And you'd create a level sequence. And I'll just call this shot 1. So if I make a level sequence and I double click it, what it does is it creates a timeline. Hooray, we finally have it. That's where the timeline lives. The timelines live in a level sequence. Let me go ahead and do this so I don't block the screen, because you'll need to see all this. This is where all of our stuff goes. So a level sequence is where you can make per shot changes. So we have our environment in the level, and then we can have specific animation and changes and things that only live in the animation sequence. And I'm just going to kind of go through this really quickly. But if I drop a chair in here, actually I'll take all of these assets and I'll drop them all in. So these all exist now in my level sequence. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, in this scene, what has happened? Well, someone came and they pulled this chair out, and then they ran off and left that chair in that spot. This person like knocked their chair over, and so the chair's on the ground. And somebody also came and knocked this thing over too. It was very destructive. There you go. And so that's what happened. I'll go ahead and save that. But when I close my sequencer, it went back to normal. Why? Because right now, I'm just in the world. I'm just in the level. This level sequence contains the animation data and contains the per shot data for this world. So if I go into it again, double click it, it loads that shot. And there's more stuff in here. I can close that shot and we go back to the world. I'll make one more. Right click, cinematics, level sequence. Call this level sequence shot 2. And inside this shot, in this particular case, what happened is the statue and the table were hit with a shrinking ray. The table was shrunk, and the statue, I'll hit end, oops. The statue was left in place. Like that. And I'll close it. So now we have a shot where everything is disheveled, and a shot where it was hit by a shrink ray. 2 different shots, 2 different sets of animation. And so that's the thing with Unreal, is you just have the one project, everything lives inside of it, and you can have multiple different takes of animation, all living separately from each other, which is actually really, really cool and really powerful, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. And one last little thing to address here, I'll just do this really briefly, and then we'll call this part good. If I make one more level sequence, I can actually bring those other level sequences into this one. And that makes subsequences. Hello, girl. Hi. Hi. Hello, kitty cat. She's sick of me not giving her attention. And so I don't have a good way to show this to you right now, except that if I go like this, I can actually edit between them. So I can actually use this like an editor. And you'll notice that if I overlap them, it kind of does this interesting blend between them. Right? This goes a lot deeper, but at the very least, this is just my level. This is just my world, and the rest of the stuff is contained in these level sequences. I'm going to go more into that on Monday in my class, but for now, I want to jump back to show you some other stuff. Because the whole thing is, your entire project lives in here. And even if you want to build a world, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say Ctrl+N, new, and instead of I can hit basic and recreate kind of the original basic. I'm going to say open world. It says, do you want to save this? Sure. Now I've created a giant open world. It's a pretty big environment. Remember, I can hit Ctrl+L and I can change where the sun is. Right, all that stuff. But here's what's cool. This entire time, I have been using Unreal in what's called selection mode. If I go like this now, if I go in the top left corner to selection mode, I can click on that and go to landscape. And now I get this brush tool where I can sculpt the landscape. We've got sculpt, we've got smooth, which will kind of smooth it out, as you'd guess. We've got flatten, which can be really handy. Like that. Right? So if I just come in here and just kind of make a bit of a level, little environment here. All this, all this. If I hold shift, it'll add. If I click and drag, it'll add. If I hold shift and click and drag, it'll subtract. So click, shift click, right? And I'll smooth. Like that. And there's all kinds of other things in here, which I'm not going to bother messing with too much right now. But there is my environment. Go ahead and bring the sun up a little bit. There's my lovely environment. Now, earlier, I brought in some assets from a pack called the Stylized Nature Stuff, whatever it is. Inside here are some materials. A whole bunch of materials. One of them is a landscape instance, a material instance for landscaping, which, if I come into here, and if I start selecting some of this, these environment, like floor pieces, I'm going to pop the landscape. Actually, let me go into landscape material, and I'll override this with mi_landscape. And you can see it looks perfect, right? Couple things I need to do. Since the landscape stuff I brought into the scene is designed to be used with its other stuff, since this world doesn't know anything about it, I just need to make a quick tweak here. So I've assigned a new material texture to this, something kind of fancy that I'm going to kind of glaze over and just say, all right, well, back to my landscape tools. I did the sculpting. Now I'm going to go to the painting section. And you can see there's actually a bunch of stuff here, right? A bunch of stuff here about grass and dirt and stone and so on. And what I'm going to do is just kind of glaze over it really quick. I have to create a weight map just saying, hey, I'd like to paint some stuff. So if I say, hey, I'm getting ready to paint, get ready for me. It's like, ooh, okay, here you go. And what I can do, let me go ahead and just activate a few of these really quick. There. What this is what's called, so with landscapes, if you make a landscape, you can do what's called an auto texture. Or an auto material, which is when I'm sculpting the world, if I make, by the way, there's like grass and stuff too. Look how nice this looks already. So if I start to make a hill, oops, I'm inside of it, it will automatically start to create dirt when we go vertical a little bit, and when it gets to a cliff, it goes to rock. And so you start to get these materials already happening. And I can come in here and I can smooth it out a little bit. you know, to kind of contain it. And if we're like, I don't like this, it's kind of ugly, I don't like all these color changing things, I want to control it. In the paint mode, that's what this is for. You can paint and say, you know what, this is just going to be grass. I really like thinking, there we go. So I can just say, nope, this is a grassy hill. Keep all this as just grass. Until we're like, you know what, I take it back. I actually think this should be like dirt. This is all going to be dirt. And so then we can just adjust it. We can say, you know what, this should be stone. Oh, it's going to argue and say, hey, you didn't make a weight map yet. There. Hang on, I didn't select it. Select stone. There. Select stone, go from there. And you can see, you can basically just go in here and start painting. And you can paint the material. And what's cool is like the grass has grass. There you go. Right, now this is just the idea. What I can also do, I'm just going to go ahead and skip ahead. I'm going to go back to my content folder. I'm going to go into the stuff that I added from the marketplace, which includes full built scenes with these assets. I have to make this new level, so I'll call this world. I got to save the level, right? Because I just created this little world here. It's a level. Got to save my level, so I'll just call it world. Can't talk. Wimbush, thanks for being here. See you later, man. Once again, a reminder for anybody who wants to learn Unreal and wants to see videos that are already on the platform, since I haven't made very many yet, Wimbush's channel, wonderful resource. All right, so now we approach kind of the last phase of what I want to show you guys. Here is a pre-made world. This came from the marketplace. And you can see it has a bunch of cool stuff. We've got bushes and trees, and we've got leaves falling, little particle systems. We've got little firefly looking things. We've got water, we've got wind, all this stuff. Very cool, right? Go back to here. What's cool too is even the water even looks for the shore. So if I come back in here and I say, let's add a model, let's add some stones, and I can go ahead and find a boulder or something. If I go and add this, you can see the environment adapts. The shoreline from the water updates. And so we can make a new little thing here. And this is how we can build a world in Unreal. Using a bunch of pre-made assets, we can make our own, we could bring them in, or we could just use what the marketplace gives us and speed things up quite a bit. And so that's kind of how you would do this, is if you were doing landscaping, you could totally come in and you could sculpt, you know, could come in and sculpt some new mountain, but you probably, and then, you know, we could go and we could paint and we could say, it's actually going to be, muddy at the bottom. Make sure it feels like mud down here. I guess that is already a mud texture. Add some stone up here, maybe some dirt in the middle. I don't know. Maybe we add some grass up top. Oh, my brush strength is not very high, that's why. There, add some grass up top. Maybe we'll come down here, we'll add some moss. Right? And so we can just make our changes or whatever. But whenever we are ready to, you know, spruce this up, you typically don't leave it as landscape. We're going to add some boulders and stuff. And we're just going to kind of push that in here and use that as a way to spruce this up. I'll go ahead and scale this like that. You just start like rotating and adjusting. I haven't really planned this part out. But what you can do is use these assets. To sort of build up this this part of the landscape, which I'm not doing a very good job of it here. Maybe from here you can kind of see. You would do this and you would build it over time, and if I show you over here, all these mountains and all these rock walls and stuff are just made of these different sections. And so all these, like, you know, this big collection of rocks, this is just a bunch of boulders. So if you want to adjust it, you just do. You just kind of build out shapes. And if you want to change and say, you know what, I could use, you know, I like these little rocks over here. How'd that happen? We can go into our foliage mode and we can actually paint meshes. So we can say, all right, I'd like some bushes, please. Give me this bush, and this bush. And let's paint some bushes. Brr. Brr. Do-do-do-do-do-do. You can paint some bushes. So you know what? Actually, let's erase these bushes. Don't like it. We could do a single bush. Right? And I'll do one last little batch here. So I'll go ahead and deselect those. Let me come down to the flowers. I'll turn on lots of flowers. We'll turn on the paint. I'll up the brush size, and I'll keep the density nice and high. And we'll just hit this with a bunch of flowers. And you can see it even puts them on assets, even though that is just like a thing in the scene. Like I can come in here and take this rock and move it. You can see all the flowers. Oops, where'd it go? There you go. See, all the flowers are just now floating there in space. But they'll snap to the floor when I move it because they want to stay on it. And so it's actually a very, very smart system. You can do a lot of cool stuff. And because these are all instances, we can have this giant level with all these things, and it's very cool. So, I'm really having to hold back and not just like play with things because it's super fun to mess with this stuff. We haven't talked about particle systems and like look, all these leaves are falling. We've got like the fact that like these trees and stuff are moving. How's that happening? What is water? What's the deal with this water? Like, this is just a plane. And now we have a flood. Right? You want to lower the water level? Just lower the plane. And now we've got more of like a desert with some puddles. Right? So, super fun. There's a lot you can do. Unreal is a massive software. It can do so many things. But this should hopefully give you like an idea of why people are using Unreal and how you can have different artists working together and doing all these cool things. Because you can have somebody make an environment, and then you can have like assets, you can populate it, and you can do all this cool stuff. And we still haven't like made cameras and done any animation. Like there's just so much you can do. And what's crazy, I wonder actually, I've not tried this. I'm gonna try something that might fail. I'm gonna go back to my content browser. I'm gonna say import. No, not import. I'm gonna add from a content pack the third person presets. I'm gonna add the third person stuff in here. Now I don't know if this will work. I don't actually know how you're supposed to do this, but I don't really do game stuff yet. I'm just going to drop this little person right there. No, that didn't quite work. I need... Someone else probably knows how to do this. Probably need to set up game mode and character blueprints. Yeah. Here's what I could do. Here's what I could do. I know what to do. Here's what I can do. I'll make this easy on all of us. I'll go back to my third person. I'll go to my map. I'll go to my third person map. Go ahead and save this. Sure. Here we go. So this is that like template that you've probably all seen before, right? Like here's the game. There you go. But what I can do, I'm going to try this. I don't know how well this is going to work, but I think it will work. I'm going to take this. I'm going to lower these walls. And I'm going to try something here. I'm going to bring this level into my level. This is probably not the best way to do this, but I think it can work, so I'm going to try it. Let me just put that little area. Oops. Let's put us right around there. A little bit lower. There it is. All right, let's try it. There we go. Let's see if there's collision. Perfect. Ah, hang on, I gotta run through the water. Good thing we're a robot. There we go. With the sky color, it feels a little apocalyptic right now, actually. It doesn't really seem all that happy. It does feel a little bit intense. Don't you guys think so? Like, I feel like there's storm clouds, and that's like... I don't know. I feel like I'm racing against the end of the world right now. Just casually running to Ragnarok or something. Anyways, here's the thing. Like, you can build a world, and then you can run around in it, and you can animate your characters, and you can drop them in, and then you can have them do stuff. And so there you go. That was an odd way to do what I just did, but like technically, like that works. Like all these like modules and plug and play things, you know, it functions. And so let me go ahead and hit play again. We'll run into the snow biome, and we'll go run off and escape this way. It's really bright. I should probably change some of the settings. I feel like we're in this really bright area. If you look around, there should be snow. Like I just saw snow. Oh, I saw it for a second. You can kind of see it from certain angles. Yeah, you can see up top somewhere. Two pieces of snow. Anyway. I'll show you one more thing. Actually, this is really cool. I'm just getting carried away at this point. I'm going to create a post-process volume. A post-process volume is a really cool thing inside of Unreal, which... if I make this big square, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this big square, and I'm going to set some rules. In this square, here's what's going to happen. Our exposure is going to be manually set, first of all. Actually, hang on. I'm going to do that. Oh, hang on. There's other post-process volumes coming up. Post-process volume. Let me get rid of this one. I'm just going to delete it. Oh, hang on. It's in the... give me a second. I gotta jump into my level here. So that whole level I created is still editable. I dropped the whole thing in here, and I can now edit it as like a... It's like, oh, I don't like this tree sticking through the floor, so I'll fix that. And let me take this post-process volume and get rid of it. Then I can go back and kind of kick myself. I'll save those changes. And I'll kick myself back out of the level and go back to like what I was doing before. All right, so now I'll come in here and all right, let's do this. Let's go to bloom. We'll allow some bloom. All right, now I can change the exposure. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and change some other stuff. So I'm going to add some chromatic aberration, make this a little bit more stylized. I'm going to add some, I'm not going to mess with the camera stuff, but I am going to mess with lens flares. No, I'm not actually. I want to mess with, here we go. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to desaturate everything. I'm going to add some contrast to everything. I'm going to adjust the gamma. And now what I've done, there we go, that's fine. And I'm going to add, no, that's fine. So now what I've done is I've turned everything black and white, right? But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make it so that I'm going to find the setting I'm looking for. There you are. All right, so check this out. So here I am, I'm running around my world and like, oh, what's in the snow biome? It looks really interesting. Let's go walk on in. And suddenly, I'm kind of on the border, so it's kind of freaking out a little bit. But as soon as I enter this world, we've gone back in time. Hang on, where's my button? I don't know where the button is. You guys might have just heard some sounds, and I can't tell what they were. Hang on. Sorry, let me do something. I'm doing something on another screen, so this frame rate's gonna be a little weird. I have no idea. I don't know. You guys might have heard a sound. You might have not have. I had a sound effect for that, but anyway, if I walk back over here, you can see there's like a weird dip where it like cuts to black. Wherever my camera is what it listens to, right? So I'm right on the border. You didn't hear a sound effect? That's okay. But you can see that when I enter a new area, right? And so that's what a post-process volume is. It's a volume that as long as you're inside of the volume, those changes take effect. So anyway, this is cool. Just want to show you that. All right, now let me look at the chat for a minute here. And yes, I do have a beefy PC. Can you fade out or blend? Yeah, you can make the volume a lot cleaner. The problem is that I deleted the other ones, and so it goes from no volume to that volume. If I had done it better, yes, it would do a clean transition and a clean blend. This is the first time I've ever done it where it like cuts to black in between. Usually it's not having that problem. But yes, it doesn't have to be that stark of a contrast. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, there are two skies colliding. Yeah, it's blending like the third person template with the other level that I've created. It doesn't know what to do with the fact that it's got both of these things existing, so I'd have to fix that. let's see. I could go to the previous map, window, world setting, game mode. Okay, that makes sense. Not sure if you'd seen my previous question. Oh, I think I missed it. Would you recommend Would you recommend your Unreal 4 animation course for aspiring technical artists and technical directors? That's a good question. I think so. I mean, if you want to make sure I understand your question, would I recommend my Unreal animation course for aspiring technical artists, technical directors? If you want to learn Unreal and what it can do for animation, and you want to be a TD or technical animator or technical artist that can work with Unreal, then I would say yes. I would recommend it because you'll get. Let me give some backstory really quick. Let me give some backstory. On my little promo page here, if you scroll down, there's a little section here called An Instructor Trusted by Epic Games. This is worth looking into. I worked with Epic for the Animation Fellowship, which, if you Google that, this was in May of last year. Or this was when the applications went out. We did the thing in the summer or whatever, summer, fall. Epic put together this thing called the Fellowship, which it was a thing for experienced professionals. It was for animators, technical artists, directors, producers, and so on. And it was basically a month-long, super intensive, like learn everything about Unreal for animation. It was really intense. People took a month off work and they just did this constantly, like 9 to 5 every single day for weeks, learning stuff all day, working on short film projects essentially. And it was a big deal. And I was an instructor for it and a mentor. And so I had a team of 15 industry people, and they created this project. This is the video that they made. And I can't play that on my stream because copyright. I don't have the rights to that song. But the people on my team, Team Neistat, as you can see, they created their own scenes, and we put it all together, and it was a really, really cool thing. And it was awesome. Some of the people on my team everybody on the team is awesome. Different people have different job roles, working at different studios, but it was a very high-level professional thing. And you can watch that here. This class is designed kind of in that same spirit. It was designed in that same spirit. And so if that fellowship experience seems like something that you would have enjoyed, my class is kind of based on the same type of training model, where that's when I say, like, this is very industry focused, industry specific. That's why, like, it's meant for kind of the same type of audience, which is why we have guest speakers and all this kind of stuff, so that anyone who has really deep technical questions beyond me can ask these people. Everyone here is wonderful. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's sort of the level that this class is designed to be at. And the information, like this information, isn't super out there yet. It's all still so new and changing. And so there's that. And there have been various educational institutions that have approached me to try and design classes for them and curriculums for their schools. And it's because not that many people know this stuff yet. And so I'm doing my best to get the word out. And my class is the way that I'm doing that. Anyway, hopefully that helps give some context as to what the course is starting Monday. Is this going to be available for replay on your channel? Yes. Yes, it will. This live stream that was just here, that's been going on for almost 3 hours now. This will live on my channel, and you'll be able to rewatch this and enjoy it. Eventually, I will re-record this a little bit cleaner, a little bit more concise as a regular YouTube video. It'll be a very long YouTube video, but I'll eventually take this video down and replace it with a proper YouTube video. But until then, I thought this would be kind of a fun thing to try. Do a little live course, show you guys stuff, answer questions, and provide a place for people to start learning Unreal in the style that I teach. Let me see if there's anything else in my outline I needed to get to. I covered foliage. I did all that. There's a few other things here. I think the only other thing I want to share is that if you do make anything on Unreal, make sure that when you're saving any assets that you updated. So if I go to File and I go to Save, choose Files to save, you can see here I have updated various things, certain assets, certain volumes, maps. It's not like in Maya or Blender where you just hit Ctrl+S and save and close. There's lots of different assets and files and things that get created. And so all the stuff that you do and all the things that you make are individual files and UAssets and things like that. So you want to make sure that you either, hit this button that says save all, or, you can save your level, but you can also save your level sequences. And so if you go to do something, hit choose files to save, or when you go to close the engine, for example, it's going to ask you, hey, what do you want to save? Don't be overwhelmed by this, but just keep in mind, if you want everything to look the way you've set it up, you probably want to make sure you save all the things. Or if you're like, you know what, I don't like what I did to this other volume, I'm not going to save that one. I'm going to save everything else but that one. And yeah. And you can save selected. Like so. Right? So that is a little bit of an intro to Unreal Engine. Hopefully it helps. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That's the majority of what I wanted to cover. Kind of decided to learn Unreal or Unity or both to make animation art for Apple Vision Pro. For Apple Vision Pro, I'm not sure what's the better option, but that's a very interesting idea. I have no idea. I'd love to do a video on that, but I don't have an Apple Vision Pro. Are there incremental saves or an easy way to back up versions of a file in Unreal Engine? Great question. The best way to do incremental saves is to duplicate the file that you're working with. So, for example, if I go back to my starter content, maps, minimal default, back here where I had my stuff, and then I had my different, there we go. So I had these different shots, right? This one, that one. If I wanted to do iterative saves, what I would do is I would duplicate this level sequence. That way I'd have shot 1, and then I have shot 1_1, and I would save that, and I would work in this one. That is the way you would currently do level iterative saves. Excellent question. All right. Will this stay public? Yes. This will stay on the channel. Yeah, and there's source control. There are a variety of more... there are a variety of tools. Perforce is a really popular one. Perforce is a way to save and back up entire Unreal projects and save that with other people and track dependencies and check in, check out, all that kind of stuff. But if you're just one person, you duplicate the file. Yeah. Do you use something like a Stream Deck for working in Unreal? Actually, let's talk about hardware for a second, because this is kind of an interesting thing, and I don't think I'll be making a video specifically on this, so I may as well cover it here and share this with you guys. I have a Stream Deck on my desk. I'm currently using it to do this and switch between scenes for live streaming. I don't use the Stream Deck currently with Unreal Engine. I absolutely could, and I really like using the Stream Deck for stuff, but I don't currently have it in use for Unreal. However, I was sent this. Back at SIGGRAPH last year, I met up with this company called 3D Connection that makes something called the Space Mouse. I have yet to actually properly test this. I've been meaning to do it for months. Now it's basically SIGGRAPH again, so I feel kind of bad about it. But let me shout them out. 3D Connection is the company, and they make this thing called the Space Mouse, and they make different levels of it. Like this little knob dial right here comes by itself. or with like a little collection of buttons, or this is the enterprise one that's like the big fancy one. It comes with like the giant version. And let me show it to you. This is super cool. I really would like to have had this set up to show it to you properly, but this is the kind of thing that people use a lot of the time for Unreal Engine. It doesn't have to be this. You can use different things, but this is an example of something you might use for Unreal Engine, because obviously you can have different buttons with a little screen up here. You have, I mean, this is like keyboard buttons. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like Escape, Tab, Control, Shift, Alt, Space, Menu. So it's kind of like all your modifiers here. So it's like a left-handed keyboard, different other buttons and stuff. But the main thing this is for is this dial. And if you can see it, it can push up. I don't know if you can really see. I can like basically push it forward, backwards. I can turn it. I can twist it. This is a camera. This is basically like a camera control thing. So you can like fly around the camera using this little knob. It's very cool. Anyway, I will be hopefully doing a video or something showing that once I get the hang of it. But I haven't had time to mess with it all that much. I've been so busy. So, anyway, I forgot to put the top. This particular model, I think, is the fanciest and most expensive one that they have. They were very kind to send it to me. I don't remember how much it costs. They have less intense versions with less buttons and stuff, so you can get it for less. But it's a really cool tool that I know more people actually, I know a lot of people who use this actually and swear by it. I also want to know, how can we import control rigs from Maya to Unreal? You can't. In the same way that you can't... So you know how you can't bring a Maya rig into Blender and it just is guaranteed to work every time, in the same way that you can't take a Blender rig and bring it into Maya? Same thing here. You can't just bring a rig into Unreal and expect it to work. Each of them have different ways of rigging stuff. There are certain things that will carry over, but it doesn't just like move. You can't just be like, I have this rig in Maya, let me throw it in Unreal. That doesn't quite work like that. And then when you go to Unreal, there are two different ways to go about it. You can either bring over like the skeleton and the mesh to create a skeletal mesh, which will bring in the character to do motion capture, or create a new rig for him from it. Or you can go like the marketplace route, and you can just like download stuff that already exists. So there's that. And then yes, it does work with Alembic and USD. You could bring in cached animation data as well. That's something that I cover in my Maya workshop, actually. That's on my website. But I don't really cover the Unreal side of it all that much. I show how to do the exports out of Maya, but in Unreal, yeah, you could totally do that. Unreal supports Alembic caches, and as of version 5.4, also now supports USD animation caches, which are way lighter than Alembic, and I would recommend trying it. I haven't tested much of that workflow yet. I really should. But I would always go USD over Alembic if you can. All right. Final reminder that if you enjoyed today and you want to go deeper and you want the animation stuff specifically, my class starts on Monday, goes for 3 weeks. You can jump in late. It will all be recorded and available to anybody who signs up. You'll have access to the recordings forever. And the guest speakers, some of them have said that I can record their stuff as well, which is very cool. Some I'm still waiting to hear back. But yeah. Yeah. That's that. And obviously, keep an eye on the YouTube channel in general, because I'll be doing a lot more Unreal Engine videos coming soon. One of the videos that I'm working on right now, that I'm almost done with, is facial animation with metahumans and motion capture and that kind of stuff. That's just an interesting video that's almost done. I'm doing that with Dell and NVIDIA. And speaking of hardware, they've sent some really, really powerful computer hardware to do stuff on. So we're doing some more tests with that as well. Anyways, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know, I guess. Like, I don't know where you would let me know. I guess in the chat if you're quick enough, but If you end up coming back to this video later, or you watch this later, you can drop like a normal YouTube comment, because right now we're using the live chat, but like you can drop a normal YouTube comment if it's after the fact. But let me know what you thought of this. I've never done a live class before. My actual classes that I teach, typically I have presentations, there's PowerPoints, and I've got slides, and I go back between the slides and the software, and I actually have notes and stuff. This was a little bit in between, like a live stream demo and a class. But I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it helps. Hope it makes Unreal a little bit less scary, or just that much more exciting if you haven't messed with it yet. But it's free to download, so jump in, play with it, make stuff, and like the amount of job opportunities I've seen in the last couple of months, like in a time where our industry is kind of struggling, there are a lot of people looking for people who know Unreal. So if you can, I would advise learning it, just so that you have the familiarity, because it's going to just keep growing and keep getting bigger. And it's always better to be early to these types of things if you can be. And if you can't be, is what it is. You can always learn it later, but you can learn it sooner. There are opportunities that are currently unfilled. So, good luck. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time. Have a good rest of your weekend. And, you know, if you're going to be on YouTube for a bit longer, maybe go watch some of the more recent videos that I've posted and see what's out there. See what I made. I've done some other videos showing some workflows. Those might be of interest to you. So, all right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for being here. See you later.